Step away from the box, Mr. Mercer. The drill screamed against steel, spraying bright curls of metal across my dock. It was 5:42 in the morning. Fog dragged low over the lake, and the air smelled of wet cedar, gasoline, and the bitter heat of an overworked motor. A security guard in a gray HOA jacket leaned his weight into the drill, while another fed a chain through the iron brackets bolted into my dock. I caught the cable before he could lock it. The vibration punched through my palm. "This is private property," I said. Tires hissed over gravel behind me. 3 police cruisers rolled down the access road, lights flashing red across the black water. A white Range Rover followed them, clean enough to reflect the sunrise. Vanessa Caldwell stepped out before the vehicles stopped moving. Her heels struck the boards in hard, measured clicks. She wore a cream coat, oversized sunglasses, and the expression of someone arriving to inspect damage she had already ordered. "Officers," she said, pointing at me. "That man is interfering with city property." The guard killed the drill. Sudden silence settled over the dock, broken only by water tapping the pilings and the soft ticking of hot metal. I looked down at the box they had attached to my family's dock. Blue paint marked one corner. The same strange blue streak I had noticed on a stack of lake access receipts 2 weeks earlier. A brass slot had been cut into the lid, wide enough for cash envelopes. Beside it stood a new sign mounted over the place where Mercer Lake had been painted for nearly 50 years. The old name was still visible beneath the fresh gray coating. Above it, in polished black letters, someone had written, "Silver Pines Community Lake. Authorized access only. Lake preservation funds collected. $301,640." The bottom of the sign carried the gold seal of Cedar Ridge. My fingers closed around the small brass key in my pocket. Pump House was stamped along its worn edge. It had belonged to my father, and I carried it whenever I worked near the water. I could feel each letter pressing into my skin. Vanessa removed her sunglasses. "You've ignored every notice we sent," she said. "You threatened our contractors, damaged public equipment, and attempted to remove funds belonging to the community." I glanced at the empty steel box. "You collected $300,000 from this lake." Her smile tightened. "We protected this lake. Something your family failed to do." One officer reached for my wrist. The cuff closed with a cold metallic snap. I did not resist. I watched Vanessa step beside the sign as if she owned the water behind her. Beyond the dock, the old bronze bell outside my father's boathouse moved gently in the wind but made no sound. Its clapper had been removed. Another thing that did not belong to her. What Vanessa didn't know was that every official city seal carried a registration number. I had spent 22 years reading permits, tracing invoices, and finding expensive lies buried inside ordinary paperwork. The number stamped beneath her seal was small, but I could see it, and I already knew where I would start looking. What would you do if someone put you in handcuffs while they collected money from your property? 3 weeks before the handcuffs, the first warning came from the sound of chainsaws across still water. I was replacing a corroded valve inside the old pump house when the engine started. The concrete floor trembled under my boots. Through the open door, I saw cedar branches dropping along the eastern shore, one after another, followed by the metallic clank of fence posts hitting rock. That shoreline belonged to me. Mercer Lake covered 86 acres my grandfather had dammed in 1974. Our deed included the water, the bed beneath it, the boathouse, and every access road except one narrow walking easement granted to neighboring residents. They could reach the bank. They could not launch boats, host events, build structures, or charge admission. I crossed the dam in my work truck. Fresh soil and diesel exhaust hung in the air. A crew had already cleared a 30-foot opening through my trees and poured gravel toward the water. Orange survey paint marked a rectangle where the family picnic shelter used to stand. A white Range Rover waited near the shoreline. Vanessa Caldwell stood beside it in pressed slacks and a pale blue blouse, holding a rolled site plan like a judge holding a sentence. Her blonde hair did not move in the wind. Neither did her smile. "You're blocking the equipment," she said. "You're cutting my trees. They're obstructing the new launch area." I looked past her. A compact excavator was chewing into the bank, its bucket dragging wet clay into black piles. 2 workers were assembling a steel payment kiosk beside the unfinished ramp. "There is no launch area," I said. "There will be Saturday." She handed me a laminated notice bearing the Cedar Ridge seal. It announced the grand opening of Silver Pines Community Lake, complete with boat permits, fishing passes, and a summer concert series. The first event was scheduled for June 15th, 11 days away. At the bottom, bold red text warned that anyone interfering with construction faced a $5,000 municipal penalty. I read the page twice. The parcel number listed beneath my name was wrong by one digit. More important, the document cited an easement recorded in 1998. My father never signed an easement in 1998. He had been in a hospital in St. Louis that entire summer after a crane cable shattered his hip. I had handled every piece of property paperwork while he recovered. I remembered the smell of antiseptic on the envelopes and the tremor in his hand when he signed his name. This signature was too smooth. Who approved this? I asked. Vanessa tapped the city seal with one manicured nail. People above your pay grade. Her voice stayed soft, almost friendly. That made it worse. I photographed the notice, the machinery, the survey stakes, and the blue paint smeared along the kiosk frame. Then I walked to the edge of the new ramp and found a brass boundary marker half buried under fresh gravel. Someone had hammered it sideways. That marker had stood there for 50 years. Vanessa watched me pull it free. You have until Friday to remove your boat and personal equipment, she said. After that, anything left on the premises becomes subject to impound. I brushed mud from the stamped word Mercer and looked at the men building a business on my water. Then I made my decision. I would let them keep working long enough to show me who was paying for it. The next morning, I came back before sunrise with a laser level, a soil probe, and the battered survey case I used on drainage jobs. Mist clung to the water in thin gray sheets. The new gravel ramp looked clean from a distance, but clean work can still be dishonest work. I set the tripod beside the shoreline, leveled the instrument, and shot 3 elevations across the cut bank. The numbers were wrong. The crew had dropped the ramp 18 inches below the approved floodline. One hard storm would push lake water straight into the eastern lots. Anyone who had spent years rebuilding culverts and tracing runoff would have seen it immediately. Vanessa's contractors had not designed access. They had carved a funnel. I drove a steel probe into the fresh fill. It sank almost to the handle. No compacted base. No drainage fabric. Just loose clay hidden under decorative gravel. Behind me, an engine idled. A black utility truck sat near the trees with its lights off. When I turned, the driver lifted a phone toward me, snapped a picture, and rolled away without speaking. I kept working. My father taught me never to trust a surface simply because someone had painted lines on it. He used to take me around the lake after storms, his boots sinking into mud while he checked spillways, hinges, and retaining bolts by hand. Water remembers every shortcut, he would say. The lake was never just scenery to us. My grandfather built the first dam with rented equipment and 2 neighbors who worked for sandwiches and beer. My father rebuilt the West Spillway after the flood of 1993. I learned to weld in the boathouse, sparks bouncing across the concrete while rain hammered the tin roof. Every repair was recorded. That afternoon, I climbed into the loft above the old workshop. Dust floated through the narrow beam of my flashlight. The place smelled of rope, mouse nests, and machine oil that had soaked into the floorboards decades earlier. Behind a stack of rusted minnow traps sat a green metal document box. The lock matched the brass key in my pocket. It opened with a stiff click. Inside were faded photographs, maintenance ledgers, tax receipts, and a rolled linen map tied with red cord. The map showed the original lake boundary, the pump house, and a narrow service tunnel beneath the eastern bank. One corner carried a handwritten note from my grandfather. Do not surrender gate control without county review. No explanation. No date. I photographed the note, but left the map open across the workbench. Near the bottom of the box, I found an envelope labeled City Correspondence, 1974. Before I could open it, gravel cracked outside. 2 men in Silver Pines jackets crossed the yard toward the boathouse. They were not carrying tools. One tried the side door. The other moved directly toward the old records room, as if someone had told him exactly where to look. I killed the loft light and watched through a gap in the boards. Their flashlights swept over shelves, cabinets, and the wall where my father once kept permit files. They said the Mercer papers are still here, one whispered. My hand tightened around the brass key. This was no longer an HOA building a boat ramp. Someone inside City Hall was afraid of what my family had kept. My phone started vibrating before the two men reached the records room door. The sound buzzed against the wooden floor beside my boot. One of them froze. His flashlight climbed the wall, slid across the rafters, then stopped inches below where I was crouched. I held my breath. A truck horn sounded near the road. Both men backed out fast, boots hammering the boards. Their engine roared, gravel snapped beneath the tires, and the taillights vanished through the trees. By sunrise, Vanessa had already changed the story. A local news van waited outside my gate. The reporter called me a disgruntled landowner obstructing a public restoration project. Silver Pines residents stood behind her holding printed signs about children, clean water, and community access. None of them mentioned the chainsaws. None mentioned the men who had entered my boathouse at midnight. My phone kept lighting up. Angry messages. Canceled jobs. One client wrote that he could not hire a contractor under investigation for environmental violations. At 9, a city inspector taped a red closure notice across the pump house door. At 10, my bank called. The loan officer's voice had gone careful and formal. We received notice of pending municipal liens against the property. How much? Currently $42,000. Daily penalties may increase that. The lake paid for its own maintenance through cabin rentals and seasonal dock leases. If the city froze those permits, I would miss the next mortgage payment. Noah's college deposit sat in the same account I was now using for legal fees. Vanessa arrived that afternoon. Her Range Rover stopped beside the red notice. She stepped out carrying a cream-colored folder and 2 paper cups, as if we were meeting for coffee instead of discussing the destruction of my family's property. "You're losing contracts," she said. I did not ask how she knew. She opened the folder on the hood of my truck. Inside was a purchase agreement from Caldwell Civic Solutions. $800,000 for the lake, the boathouse, the cabins, and all access rights. It was less than half the amount she had offered 2 years earlier. "Sign by Friday," she said. "The fines disappear. The bank gets paid. Your son keeps his future. And if I refuse?" She smiled without showing teeth. "Then the city protects the public." I closed the folder and handed it back. No, I did not shout. I did not tear the papers. Men like my father had taught me that anger leaves fingerprints, but patience leaves records. That night, Noah and I mounted 2 trail cameras near the eastern bank. We hid another inside the broken housing of an old flood gauge. At 2:17 a.m., my phone vibrated on the nightstand. Motion detected. The screen showed Vanessa's Range Rover parked without lights near the pump house. Councilman Richard Voss stepped from the passenger side. He wore work gloves and carried bolt cutters. The camera caught only fragments through the reeds. Vanessa pointing toward the boathouse, Voss holding a photocopy of my grandfather's map, and a third man dragging a portable saw toward the spillway controls. Then the feed turned white. Someone had found the camera and sprayed the lens. I ran outside as metal shrieked across the lake. By the time I reached the eastern bank, the pump house chain lay severed in the mud. Fresh boot prints led inside. And beneath the floor, someone was cutting into the old service tunnel. The county hearing lasted 23 minutes. That was all it took for Vanessa to win. The chamber smelled of floor wax, damp coats, and overheated printer toner. I sat beneath fluorescent lights while Councilman Voss presented a certified resolution granting Silver Pines temporary stewardship authority over Mercer Lake. Vanessa followed with photographs of algae, cracked boards, and children standing behind yellow safety tape. None of the pictures showed who had placed the tape. My attorney objected to the resolution's signature page. The hearing officer barely glanced at it. "Municipal records are presumed valid," he said. His gavel struck once. The city kept control of the shoreline. My cabins remained closed. The daily fines continued. Vanessa was authorized to open the boat ramp on schedule. Outside, cameras crowded the courthouse steps. Vanessa stood behind a podium with the gold city seal attached to the front. "Today," she said, "the community defeated private greed." Applause broke behind her. My phone vibrated with another canceled contract. Then the bank sent a notice freezing my business credit line pending review of the liens. For a moment, the concrete beneath my boots felt unsteady. Vanessa passed me on the steps and lowered her voice. "Friday is still available," she said. "After that, the offer drops." I watched her walk toward the Range Rover while residents cheered. She believed the lake was already hers. Laura Bennett did not. She was a forensic accountant I had hired to review the fines and payment records. We met that evening in my kitchen, surrounded by maps, receipts, and copies of the hearing exhibits. Rain tapped the windows. The coffee had burned down to black sludge. Laura held the certified resolution beneath a desk lamp. "This number," she said. She pointed to the registration code stamped beside the city seal. It ended in 74 EC. My grandfather's linen map carried the same letters in one corner, written beside the Eastern Service Tunnel. Laura opened a photograph from the green metal document box. "The city recycled an old project number," she said. "They thought nobody would recognize it." I took out the brass pump house key. The forgotten tunnel began beneath the eastern bank, behind the floor Voss's men had tried to cut open. Using the linen map, we found a second entrance hidden below a retaining wall 30 yards downstream. Mud sucked at our boots. Rusted hinges groaned when the key turned. Inside, the air tasted of iron and standing water. Our flashlights caught old valve wheels, corroded gauges, and shelves packed with sealed county archive tubes. One tube bore the code 74 EC. The cap cracked open with a dry snap. Inside was the original 1974 Cooperative Engineering Agreement, signed by my grandfather, the county, and Cedar Ridge. The paper smelled of mildew and machine oil. Laura read the controlling clause twice. The city had received limited access to inspect the dam and emergency spillway. Nothing else. No recreational rights. No commercial rights. No authority to collect fees. More important, the agreement stated that any unauthorized commercial use automatically terminated the city's access license and returned exclusive control of the Eastern Gate, ramp corridor, and service infrastructure to the Mercer estate. Vanessa had not taken control of my lake. By charging admission, she had legally erased the city's only right to enter it. I reached for my phone. "We shut the gate tonight." My attorney caught my wrist. "No," he said. "Not yet." Rain drummed against the tunnel roof. He looked at the original agreement, then at the hearing notice still folded in my pocket. "If we act now, they call it a property dispute. Let them open the lake. Let them collect one more dollar under that resolution." His eyes hardened. "Then we stop chasing the lie and prove the fraud." My attorney spread the original agreement across his conference table and placed a yellow legal pad over the clause I wanted to use. "Do not touch the gate," he said. "Do not shut down the ramp. Do not give them a single photograph that makes you look reckless." Rain rattled against the office windows. Somewhere behind the wall, an old pipe knocked every 7 seconds. "If Vanessa keeps collecting money after receiving notice," he continued, "this stops being confusion. Every ticket, invoice, and sworn statement becomes proof that she knew." So we let her keep building the case against herself. Laura created a digital ledger for every dollar connected to the lake. I measured the new ramp, photographed each unpermitted cut, and logged the elevation readings with timestamps. Noah repositioned the trail cameras beyond the reach of spray paint. My attorney sent preservation notices to the city, the HOA, the bank, and every contractor whose name appeared on the project. The printer ran until the room smelled of hot paper. Vanessa answered with 12 pages on Silver Pine's letterhead. She declared, in writing, that the HOA held full and uncontested commercial authority over Mercer Lake. She claimed my family had surrendered all access rights in 1998 and that the 1974 agreement no longer existed. Then she sent the statement everywhere. To my bank, supporting the liens. To the city licensing office, demanding permanent event permits. To the insurance carrier, identifying Silver Pines as the lawful operator. To the fire marshal, certifying that the ramp and shoreline met emergency standards. Each message carried her signature. Each one closed another exit. The internal witness arrived on a wet Tuesday evening. Martha Keene had served as HOA treasurer for 6 years before Vanessa removed her from the board. She sat at my kitchen table with rain dripping from her coat and a flash drive clenched in her fist. "I should have come sooner," she said. The drive contained payment spreadsheets, vendor contracts, meeting recordings, and hundreds of emails. Laura connected it to an isolated laptop. The cooling fan whispered while folders opened across the screen. One email came from Vanessa to Councilman Voss 3 months before construction began. "Mercer will never agree. Use the old emergency access file and change the project description. Once we start collecting, the city can claim public reliance." Another attached a draft of the false resolution. A third instructed Martha to classify lake tickets as voluntary conservation donations. Martha had refused. Vanessa fired her the next morning. We worked in shifts after that. Laura traced deposits. Noah matched vehicle plates from the cameras. Martha identified initials beside cash withdrawals. My attorney forwarded certified copies to the State Fraud Unit, County Prosecutor, Insurance Investigators, and the Public Integrity Division. The old wall clock clicked above us. Every hour brought another threat from Vanessa. Another fine. Another demand. Another signed lie. She mistook our silence for fear. Silver Pines announced its grand opening for Saturday. Live music, catered food, children's races, and a ceremonial ribbon cutting led by Voss. More than 400 tickets had already been sold. Television crews were invited. Vanessa ordered a temporary stage built over the spot where my family's name had been painted out. I could have stopped the event with the agreement in my hands. Instead, I waited. By Friday night, floodlights burned along the shoreline. White tents snapped in the wind. Workers rolled sound cables across my dock, while Vanessa practiced her speech beneath the city seal. Inside the boathouse, our cameras were recording, the agencies had confirmed receipt, and every document sat arranged in numbered folders. The stage was hers. The evidence was ours. Everything was ready. At 4:38 Saturday morning, the alarm on the eastern spillway went off. Not the motion chime from our cameras. The pressure alarm. Its metallic pulse rattled through my phone speaker while I pulled on my boots. A red warning flashed across the monitoring app. Gate position changing. Manual override. Someone was moving the flood control valve. I called 911 from the truck and kept the line open as I drove toward the lake. Fog swallowed the headlights. Gravel hammered the wheel wells. Ahead, portable event lights burned through the trees like white fire. The spillway is being tampered with, I told the dispatcher. Private infrastructure. Possible flooding risk. I am not confronting anyone unless necessary. Water thundered beneath the dam when I arrived. The pump house chain lay in two pieces beside the door. Fresh bolt cutter marks shone on the links. Vanessa's Range Rover idled near the dock, and Voss's black sedan blocked the service road. Inside the control room, Voss stood at the main valve wheel with both hands on the spokes. A hired contractor was forcing a steel bar beneath the locking collar. The gate indicator had already moved 6 inches. That was enough to increase flow through the eastern channel. Another foot could tear loose the temporary stage supports downstream. I stopped outside the doorway. Step away from the valve, I said clearly. You are inside a restricted control facility. The lock has been cut, and the system is being recorded. Voss turned. Vanessa stood behind him holding my grandfather's linen map. The red cord dangled from her fist. You don't control this facility anymore, she said. The bronze key was visible in the open cabinet beside her. They had taken it from the boathouse evidence shelf. The contractor raised the steel bar. I stayed outside. Do not move that gate, I said toward my phone. The event structures are in the discharge corridor. Opening it further could injure people. Vanessa's expression changed for half a second. She knew. Then Voss reached beneath his jacket and pulled a pistol. The slide scraped against leather. He pointed it low, toward the concrete near my boots. Leave, he said. The dispatcher heard every word. I am unarmed, I said. Councilman Voss is displaying a firearm. Vanessa Caldwell is holding a stolen survey map. The spillway lock has been cut. A camera hidden inside the broken flood gauge blinked green behind him. Vanessa saw it. Turn that off. Voss swung the pistol toward the gauge. The shot cracked inside the concrete room. Glass burst outward. The sound punched through my chest and rolled across the water. A brass casing bounced once, spun beside the severed chain, and stopped against my boot. I backed behind the exterior wall. Engines rose beyond the dam. 2 county patrol units came from the south access road. A state investigator's SUV followed, exactly as arranged in our operational notice. Officers moved between the vehicles with weapons drawn. Voss placed the gun on the floor too late. Vanessa dropped the map. The contractor ran through the rear door and collided with Noah's camera tripod. He went down in mud while the lens kept recording. Within minutes, Voss was handcuffed beside his sedan. Vanessa sat on the dock while investigators photographed the casing, the cut chain, the valve position, and the damaged camera. Martha identified the stolen map. The dispatcher preserved the call. Vanessa kept insisting it was an emergency inspection. Even after the investigators removed the pistol, even after they found bolt cutters in her vehicle. She was released pending formal charges because the prosecutor wanted the financial case intact. Voss remained detained on the weapons violation and interference with critical infrastructure. By 7, workers were asking whether the grand opening was canceled. Television vans were already arriving. 400 ticket holders waited beyond the gate. The stage stood crooked but stable, and the valve had been returned to its safe position. My attorney looked at the cameras, then at the crowd. "We have enough to close it now," he said. I watched Vanessa cross the parking area toward the podium, still pretending she controlled the day. "No," I said. "Let her open it." The microphones were live. The agencies were waiting. And City Hall was about to hear where every dollar had gone. The brass band was halfway through its second song when Vanessa stepped onto the stage. White tents lined the shore. Champagne glasses flashed beneath the morning sun. A catering crew carried silver trays past a banner that read Grand Opening, Silver Pines Community Lake. Vanessa wore a pearl suit and a gold city pin, smiling for cameras as if the handcuffs, the gunshot, and the cut spillway lock had never happened. Behind her, waterfront homes curved around the eastern channel. Fresh paint, stone patios, private docks. Millions of dollars built beside water their owners believed Vanessa controlled. I entered through the service gate carrying one steel cash box. No speech. No crowd of supporters. My attorney walked beside me. Laura followed with numbered folders. Martha carried the green document case from my father's boathouse. 2 state investigators waited near the press platform, and a county engineer stood beside the spillway control panel. Vanessa saw us and tightened her grip on the microphone. "This man has spent weeks sabotaging a community project," she announced. "Security, remove him." Nobody moved. My attorney handed the event manager a stamped order. "Temporary administrative suspension," he said. "Effective immediately." The music stopped mid-note. A fire marshal stepped onto the stage and posted the first notice across the city banner. The boat launch, concert area, and commercial operations were suspended pending review of false safety certifications. Vanessa laughed sharply. "This is procedural harassment." The county engineer answered by activating a monitor beside the stage. My elevation readings appeared first. Then photographs of the loose fill, the missing drainage fabric, the damaged flood gauge, and the spillway indicator moving during the break-in. "The ramp was built below the flood line," he said. "The stage sits inside an active discharge corridor. Continued operation would endanger the public." Workers began guiding guests away from the docks. No panic. No rushing. The pump slowed under county supervision. Warning lights changed from green to amber. A technician closed the commercial intake valve and locked the control wheel with a numbered government seal. Vanessa pointed at me. "He altered those measurements." I placed my grandfather's linen map on the podium. Martha opened the green metal box and removed the original 1974 agreement. The county clerk held up the certified archive copy beside it. Same signatures. Same project code. Same clause. The city had emergency inspection access. Nothing more. No ownership. No ticketing authority. No commercial rights. My attorney faced the cameras. By selling access, Silver Pines terminated the city's limited license and restored exclusive control of the Eastern Gate and service infrastructure to the Mercer estate. The old brass key turned in my hand. A deputy removed Vanessa's electronic gate controller. I inserted my father's key into the original lock and closed the access gate legally, with the engineer and fire marshal watching. Then Laura opened the financial file. Bank records filled the monitor. Ticket payments moved from residents into Blue Cedar Municipal Services, from Blue Cedar into Caldwell Civic Solutions, from there into fake dredging contracts, campaign accounts, and personal credit lines. The total appeared in red, $347,820. An insurance investigator stepped forward. Silver Pines obtained liability coverage by declaring itself the lawful lake operator. That declaration was false. Vanessa's smile vanished. Voss handled the permits. I relied on City Hall. Martha raised the flash drive. "No," she said. "You wrote the instructions." Laura opened the email archive. Vanessa's words appeared behind her in 12-foot letters. "Use the old emergency access file and change the project description. Once we start collecting, the city can claim public reliance." The crowd went silent. Then the final video played. Voss cutting the pump house chain. Vanessa holding the stolen map. The contractor forcing the valve. The pistol rising. The shot. The casing spinning across concrete. Vanessa backed away from the podium. This is edited. A state investigator lifted the sealed evidence bag containing the casing. Another displayed the bolt cutters recovered from her Range Rover. The dispatcher's recording followed, carrying my voice, Voss's threat, and the gunshot exactly as they happened. There was nowhere left to redirect the blame. Investigators arrested Vanessa for fraud, conspiracy, theft of records, insurance deception, and interference with critical infrastructure. The HOA board removed her authority before she reached the waiting vehicle. City officials seized the cash box, servers, and event receipts. I stood beside the locked control wheel while the lake settled into silence. Vanessa had sold luxury homes by promising command of the shoreline, the gates, and the water. But every dollar of her empire depended on a lake she had never owned. 3 months after Vanessa's arrest, the lake sounded like itself again. Water tapped softly against the dock pilings. Cedar and damp earth replaced the smell of diesel, hot metal, and fresh-cut clay. The temporary stage was gone. The unsafe ramp had been removed under county supervision, and the eastern bank had been rebuilt with proper drainage, compacted stone, and native grass to hold the soil. I could have closed Mercer Lake to everyone. I did not. The residents of Silver Pines had paid for access in good faith. Most of them had been lied to just as thoroughly as I had. So we created a new agreement, written in plain language and reviewed in public. Families could use the walking trail and designated fishing bank. Boats required reservations. Commercial events needed permits, insurance, and my written approval. Every fee appeared online, along with every expense. No private accounts. No mystery contractors. No sealed meetings. The state recovered most of the $347,820. Residents received refunds, and the remaining money restored the shoreline, upgraded the emergency spillway sensors, and funded free swimming lessons for local children. The HOA held its first real election in 7 years. Martha became treasurer again, this time with an independent auditor reviewing the books every quarter. Meeting records were published within 48 hours. Residents could inspect contracts before votes. The president no longer controlled the bank account alone. Vanessa pleaded guilty to fraud, conspiracy, falsifying insurance documents, and tampering with critical infrastructure. She received prison time and was ordered to repay what remained missing. Voss lost his council seat before his criminal case reached court. He later pleaded guilty to official misconduct and evidence tampering. The contractor who forced the valve surrendered his license and testified against both of them. None of their punishments repaired the lake by themselves. People did that. Neighbors replanted cedars where the chainsaws had cut through the shore. Teenagers helped repaint the boathouse. Noah installed weatherproof cameras and a public water level display beside the legal access gate. The bronze bell received a new clapper. One Saturday morning, I carried the green metal document box into the boathouse. The original agreement went into a fireproof cabinet. My grandfather's linen map was framed behind glass, its faded service tunnel line still visible. Beside it, I mounted the damaged flood gauge plate with the bullet hole punched through its center. Not as a trophy, as a reminder. Then I took my father's brass key from my pocket and opened the gate. The lock turned with the same stiff click I remembered from childhood. Children ran toward the fishing bank. The bell rang once above them, clear and heavy. Vanessa believed power came from seals, titles, and expensive paper. Voss believed City Hall could bury any truth deep enough. They were both wrong. Money leaves a trail. Water remembers every shortcut. Justice isn't loud. It's smart, patient, and inevitable.